being around you guys so much, all you got, even when you win, you're always like, if. It's like, you guys live in if so much.
Oh, no doubt. That's all of gambling, right? IF, right at the top of the I chart. Big I, big fucking F.
So to me, going in, try and get rid of one of the ifs. Put some money on the fucking chalk in these box scenarios. You're not being a chalk-eating pig. You'll throw balloons on the top, but don't fuck yourself before you begin.
Can you win in life when you're trying to protect your ass? That's really the question that you're asking yourself. See, the Derby is not really about a horse race. It's about life in general. It's about looking in the mirror and asking yourself, what kind of balls do you really have?
The Derby's not a horse
race. It's self-assessment time, people. It's coming up on Saturday.
It's about life.
6:30. See what kind of person you really are. Do you have the balls to leave out the chalk?
The time. Wake up with Defo, joined by Lubie. Welcome to the Defo Show.
All right. Very pleasant good morning, everybody. Welcome to this edition of the Defo Show. Jeff DeForest, very dapper-looking, handsome-looking Mike Lubitz. After what looked like a huge and very festive Cinco de Mayo celebration that you were taking part at, with the Mexican Mike Mayo. I mean, the holiday was named for him.
At the Taco Craft and Nature Walk. It was a good time. We had a lot of fun. And it went off well, both the show and their party. My in-laws came out. It was a good time. And the Derby was very exciting. I don't think it was profitable for anyone to listen to anything we talked about, but
oh my God. It was if you wanted to throw out anything that we said. Well, we were right about Fierceness was going to bounce his way right out of the Derby. That took some guts to leave that horse out after the run he had in the Florida Derby. There was a pattern there, Lubie, where he had won his maiden race very impressively. There's a statistic that I put great faith in. I think it's one of the great statistics ever drawn up. If you were trying to quantify a bunch of intangible elements with one number, the Beyer speed figure does a great job of doing that. The Beyer speed figure. A lot of people think it's bullshit. I don't. I've seen it many, many times. Horses that don't come close to the rest of the horses in the field in terms of the numbers that they have posted. I mean, it's not infallible by any means. Nothing is. But you see a horse that ran like a 70 Beyer figure last out, and he's going against a bunch of horses that ran 45s. That horse is probably winning. So, the Beyer speed figure on Fierceness was amazing, but he had shown this pattern, and you were thinking there was enough time between the Florida Derby and the Kentucky Derby, maybe for this horse to shake it. Plus, you're looking at a maturity element here, where Fierceness looked like every bit the monster that he was in the Florida Derby before the race.
Yeah.
The horse body language there. Still love that story. I mean, it's one of my favorite things. Sitting all day in a sports book. I believe it was at the MGM Grand, which had a much bigger sports book at that time, race book and sports book. Might have been one of the other major strip hotels. But nonetheless, I'm there with my buddy, the Mighty Melendez from California. And we're struggling, and we're watching this one guy cashing ticket after ticket after ticket. He's getting up after every race, screaming, "Come on with the five, come on with the five, 5 ROPs." So we introduce ourselves, say, "Hey, what the hell are you doing?" Because he had like a bunch of material. I mean, one of those guys that comes with this predated laptop computers, but he had everything. He had papers all over the place and all kinds of stuff and notes that he had handwritten. And we're thinking, wow, this guy's really into it. Let's see what it is he's all about. And he explains to us that he had written a book which wasn't really in book form. I'm thinking, well, who published this book? He had written a thesis, I guess, on workouts and horse body language. So he spends the whole day pointing out to us horse body language. You look at a horse in the post parade and you say, yeah, that one's ready to go. And I've kind of abided by that, even though the end of the story would not be favorable for thinking that this guy had any valid reason to make the assumptions that he did about horses going into the race, because we sit there all day, we cash a bunch of tickets, everything's great. He gives us a copy of this pamphlet or whatever it was that he had put out, and then it rolls around, it'll be about 5 o'clock, and all of a sudden, 2 people in nurses' outfits come, and they take the guy in what looked to be some kind of ambulance right back to whatever mental institution that he was on leave from while he was in the sports book there.
That's why it's a Mayo said manifesto, and he's right. He's like the Unabomber.
Like a guy out of Cuckoo's Nest. He just happened to be there, and he was very convincing. I mean, I could see where these crazy people totally missugaring it, right? But the horse body language thing kind of stuck with me, and You use that to try and identify characteristics in horses in post parades or on the track or in the paddock, and you just say, and you could see it. I mean, you don't have to be, some genius to figure out. This one looks like he's ready to go.
Yeah.
An athlete, right? On the muscle, the way they prance
Mhm.
around, the bowed neck was a big theory. A lot of different things. Now, if you saw fierceness before the Florida Derby, you said that's it. Whatever money was bet against him is going to go up in smoke. I mean, it's not happening. This horse is going to be a monster. But he had a pattern, only 5 races deep, that showed that every other race he runs a monster and then he runs a stifferoo.
Yep.
And there it was. I mean, there was not necessarily any reason to believe that he was going to be more effective at 1.25 miles, except that he ran away under wraps at 1.125 miles in his last race. But then you get the question, what the fuck did he beat in the Florida Derby? I don't know.
Yeah.
It wasn't much, apparently, because I think Fierceness ended up 15th. So we were right about that in throwing out Fierceness. And I did suggest to my partner, Piscataway Ray, on these bets that we don't necessarily leave out Sierra Leone. It struck me that if you were going to make a score in this race,
you needed one of the two, is what we said. Yeah, and you guys leaned Sierra Leone. You and Gertz.
Because Sierra Leone was more inclined, to be picking up tired horses in the stretch.
Yes. Yep.
And eventually was bumped around quite a bit by, what was it, Forever Young was the other horse that was in the picture there?
Yes, and it definitely, there was a lot more crap than the one you got help on a few years ago.
Oh, that was a lot of bumping there, yeah.
He was getting moved around a lot. The jockey just was, I guess, old school. Like, this is part of the game.
Surprisingly, there was no steward's inquiry, no objection whatsoever. They just let it go because you would have thought that they would have switched the third place finisher Forever Young, with Sierra Leone for the bumping that took place during the stretch. It might have been questionable, but nonetheless, no claim of foul was made, no steward's inquiry. They just let the results stand. I mean, maybe they wanted to avoid the fiasco of the maximum security thing. That's possible. But 3 horses on the wire, exciting finish. I had none of them, it turned out.
It was great. I actually watched it, and I stayed on it going, so who the fuck? Because I was like, I swear that, what is it, Manic? What the hell is the one that won, Manic Dan or Dan?
Mystic Dan.
Mystic Dan. I was like, I feel like that won, but with the head bobs, you never know if they where the head bob
looked like he just held on to me. It did, which he did. But that's the way it looked at the original viewing.
Yeah.
But it was very close. I mean, nail biter there. All 3 horses there bobbing on the wire. I'll give you a story, and this is where it hurts, not necessarily being well versed in horse race betting strategies. The Jess Man, my son, he makes a 4-horse, $2 straight superfecta. Okay. Now, for $24, you could have boxed those horses in a $1 superfecta, which still would have been a very dicey proposition. $24 it would have cost you. This only cost him 2. So what does he have? He has the 4 horses that finished in the superfecta, all of them, on this ticket, not in the right order.
No.
You know what that was worth for the $24?
No.
$8,000.
No.
If he had just gone ahead and thrown another $22 at the cost, but he wasn't familiar with the bet, so he just said, "Hey, I figured I'd add $2 on."
He didn't reach out to you.
Well, he did, yeah, but I gave him nothing but losers, man. I mean, I gave him Just a Touch, finished last. Just a Touch was doomed though from the start, and in fact, the Polyman who gave us Just a Touch on the show last Wednesday, and Gurgles also liked that horse, so there was a double affirmation about, and I really didn't have that much familiarity with Just a Touch. I mean, I looked in the form and it's like, okay, yeah, these guys both like them. They're pretty sharp. Polyman, king of the futures.
Yep.
But unfortunately, I saw as I was watching FanDuel TV coverage, and I love this guy. He's a great guy. Always was, just a super guy to deal with when he was at Calder Race Course in his infancy in the business.
Oh, Schrupp like
Todd Schrupp. What does he pick?
Touch too.
Just a Touch.
He's the worst.
That is too overbearing to overcome.
No. Did you text Polyman immediately?
Immediately, and then Polyman stopped saying that he liked Just a Touch. No. As much as he liked him, he said, "This is like it would be like having Rachel Nichols riding the horse."
I was gonna say, it's like the Nichols curse, but worse.
It's worse. The guy, I mean, great guy, like I said, sends it in. I guess he's making pretty good money. He should be. He's 25 years at TVG. I remember I was standing by the rail at Calder one day talking to Todd. when I was doing stuff over there, and he was the in-house handicapper at Calder Racecourse. That's how he kind of got started here. I guess he came from Minnesota and like Chippewa Downs or whatever. But he started to make some kind of headway here in the business when he was here in South Florida doing the in-house handicapping. And I don't know that it was like some in-house handicappers where they never pick a winner. Not sure, but he had that one time that he hit for 20,000.
Oh wow!
With a ticket that he gave out. They used to have him giving out his tickets on pick 4s, pick 5s, pick 6s. And I can't tell you how many people he buried with his selections. I mean, he would have all but one horse in the first leg of a pick 5, and that one horse naturally would win. So this was too much to overcome. So Paulie Mann's off the hook because once Shruppy said that he liked the 8, that was it. And I should have, realized that this was going to be an overwhelming mountain to climb if you were going to get by the Shrupp curse. So, and he did. He finished dead last. It's hard to pick that last, but we managed to do it.
Oh my God.
So I hope you guys had a successful derby. I had a great time. I was at what is now known as the Pomp. Kind of a weird name, isn't it? The Pomp. It's called the Pomp at Pompano.
Oh, the Pompano racetrack.
Yeah, it used to be the Isle, and then it was Harrah's. Now it's the Pomp. I don't know if my friend Kim Butler had anything to do with the naming of that. Great marketing director there at Harrah's, but and it was a good time. It was really well done all the way around. Not too crowded, not overwhelmingly so. Although by the time you got to maybe 5 o'clock, the line was prohibitive to bet if you were having to call the bet out of the window. But plenty of self-betting machines where you could have plunged. And unfortunately, the stick that I bet with Piscataway Ray went up in smoke, as did another stick betting on my own. So that was it. Loss for the day, 200, and on to the Preakness, which should have a depleted field. Yeah. Mystic Dan supposedly not going to go. Sierra Leone has already declared that he's going to wait and train at Saratoga for the Belmont, which is going to be run at Saratoga. Saratoga going to open up, I think, for like a 2 or 3 day meet around the Belmont Stakes, which is in 5 weeks. And, we'll see what happens there. I mean, I would imagine most of these horses are going to line up again in the Belmont. I don't know about the Japanese horses. They went back to Japan. In fact, the only one that was very successful betting that won Forever Young was Shohei Ohtani's interpreter, was betting Shohei's money. All right, a lot of stuff happening, man. I mean, where do we begin? With the complaint department, Lubie? Do you want to get into this, or is it so irrelevant that this is the sad thing? I mean, here we are, talk about being a non-baseball city. I mean, I'm sorry, Jim Sarney.
I know Sarney was looking forward to my rant. I don't know.
He wants you to do a segment here. Sarney's coming up with all kinds of shit for you.
I love
It's
Sarney.
amazing, yeah.
We
love Sarney.
I don't know. I mean, you can introduce it, and I'm just tired.
Should you have your own beef? I mean, like every day, 5 minutes of Lubie complaining about something?
As you
I
heard,
think you pretty much do that anyway, right?
I did it every day for a long time.
I think you're doing it for more than 5 minutes. The Louis Arise, I mean, that's it's so typical. This is great, though. I mean, talk about inside information. Coming to fruition and paying dividends. Under 79. Now, the Marlins have won a couple of games. They did get stumped there by the Oakland A's over the weekend. Then they finally salvaged the game yesterday with a 12-3 victory. So they won like 4 out of 6, which is remarkable. Mm-hmm. But how do you trade Louis Arise at this point? For what? For a modest group of prospects they got back from San Diego. How is that possible that you could not even get their top guy? I mean, it was like, well, he's a number 8 prospect in the Padres organization. Like, number 8?
What are you doing?
You got a guy that just won back-to-back batting championships in 2 leagues in subsequent years. That's never been done. Only other guy, I mean, there are like 2 guys, I guess, that have won batting titles in both leagues. DJ LeMahieu has won, but it wasn't in consecutive years. And then you got to go back to like, the 1800s to find the other guy. Incredible. And so you're trading this guy who still has time left on his contract.
Can't be costing 2 years.
Yeah, right. I mean, 2025, he becomes a free agent. Wouldn't you keep him through then? Or close to it? I mean, maybe towards the end of 2025, if things aren't going well, you trade Louis Arise and get something for him. You don't take him out of the lineup now.
I don't know. It's just annoying to me because, and we did this on No Filter, and I'm trying to think of a baseball guy that just came in as an owner and ate it. And because in basketball, you have it. You saw what the guy did with the Clippers, the Ballmer did with the Clippers. You saw what Cuban did with the Mavs. The Ishbia guy is a lunatic, but you saw what he did from their former cheap ass owner. Like you've seen in basketball, guys come in, know the organization sucks. The T-Wolves, they're doing it. They've spent money and been smart. Like, we're going to spend money, we're going to eat it, and we're going to turn this franchise around. The Marlins never get that guy. They always get the really broke fucking dude that really doesn't have any money, but like Laurier had to use other people's money and then still makes $1 billion. Fucking Sherman's like, for as owners go homeless, he's like, I'm asking for money. Like, if you don't have $1 billion, and again, who am I to talk? But if you don't have $1 billion, you shouldn't be owning a goddamn sports franchise. Like, it's just fucking annoying that they never get the guy. It's like, look, we're gonna turn this around.
Where's Steve Cohn? Yeah, when you need him.
I hate it. Exactly. That guy.
It doesn't always work. I mean, as evidenced by what happened with the Mets last year.
But he's going to keep trying. They haven't given up, right? Like, he's going to keep trying. The Marlins, and supposedly the reason is, well, look at the record. Yeah, look at the record, you fuck. You lost whoever good you had. You didn't bring anyone new. Are you shocked? The woman who put it together, you didn't give her any support, so she left.
You told her she was basically done, that she was going to be answering to some clown that was a bat boy with the Tampa Bay Rays.
Your manager of the year is like, nah, I'm good. Like,
manager of the year is implying that this will be his last year here no matter what. Incredible. I mean, it's insane. I mean, to ask people to support this garbage, and I'm not one to really complain. If you like going to baseball games, I do. But I haven't been down there in a long time. It's depressing going down there. It really is.
The other day, it was like a Friday night, and it's like fucking empty. And it's like, look, and I get our friend Brian makes fun of the sports fans and they're bullshit. The Heat, I think, are like top 5 in attendance every fucking year. The Dolphins are as good as anyone in attendance every fucking year. So don't give me that. It's not the fans down here. What city would support a franchise that every year says fuck you? What city? You could be Chicago with the Cubs, and even they've had periods where they didn't support the Cubs when they were bad for fucking 15 years. Like, I'm sorry, the Yankees are great at selling out. I guarantee in the 80s, when they hadn't won in 10 friggin' years.
Well, when Horace Clark was their best player.
Like, come on. Like, that's such a bogus bullshit. Like, why should you support a franchise that spits in your face? To me, that's just pure stupidity. Like, I'm a grown-ass adult. I work hard for my money. Why would I spend my money to support a franchise that's told me I don't matter? Get the hell out of here.
Oh, yeah. Now you're factoring in paying for the tickets. See, now I don't even want to go down there thinking I could probably get freebie tickets. That's sad, right? When you don't even want to take advantage of the possibility of getting in for free. But I mean, just a garbage move. I don't understand. There's no justification for it, except for you're telling your fan base that you're really just not in this to do anything. The slow start alone, I mean, obviously they're probably out of it anyway already. But how do you trade this guy for nothing, for nondescript prospects? They may turn out to be great. I mean, this may be better than buying Babe Ruth.
There you go.
But I doubt it somehow. And it was unimpressive, the players that they accrued back in this deal. It's May. They traded their guy. I mean, one thing, trade him like in August or whatever, saying, geez, it really was a struggle this season. We hate to part with Louis Arise. What a player. And he was on fire, too. He started out very slowly, and he was up to like 299 when they dealt him. And he goes to San Diego right away. He starts to make an impact.
Exactly.
I mean, they feel like they reacquired Tony Gwynn from the grave.
Oh, no, the Padres. This
was like the Angels when they got Rod Carew from Minnesota as a free agent.
They have all this glitz and glamour. They need a guy that just goes and does the job and shuts the fuck up. Like,
yeah.
You had to control through all of next season. Like, you wasn't even an impending free agent. Like, I don't understand the math behind this move at all. It's not even like you got a haul for him.
It's an embarrassment. It really is.
It's just annoying. Look, there are people that support the Marlins down here. It's just
who else do they have that anybody would really want? Do they have anybody? I mean,
Jazz. I guess you're hoping the Jazz Chisholm that was on the front of a video.
But if you look at Jazz, I mean, what is he really? I mean, he's a 260 hitter. Yeah,
and he's not even good in the field because they fucked him and moved him to a position he doesn't know how to play.
I mean, there's a lot of glitz and glamour surrounding Jazz Chisholm, but if you look at his productivity, they used to boo Clete Boyer because he hit 250.
He's inconsistent and he's hurt a lot.
Yeah.
Look, there's no one on this roster that anyone would want. The pitchers look, Max Mayer looks like he has a future, so maybe him. But I mean, the rest of it is just garbage. And that's what's funny to me is like another rebuild. I'm like, can you rebuild off a rebuild? Like, like they're already rebuilding. They were in the middle of a rebuild. How are they rebuilding off of a rebuild? Like,
No plan, it appears, no vision whatsoever. I mean, they're not telling the fan base anything that would even do the most remote, towards most remote possibility towards making you believe that they were, heading in a positive direction. And how far into the basement do you have to sink? How far into an abyss do you have to sink before you start to make the climb and make a turnaround? We don't have 5 more years to wait for the Marlins to do something. What really needs to be done, it's pretty apparent, right? They got to get rid of this Bruce Sherman guy who we started to have a little bit of an affinity for last year, did we not, Lubie? I mean, it looked like he had made some good moves for a rare change.
Because Jeter left, Eng stayed. They left Eng alone. They let her do some things. And I was like, oh, look at that. A GM actually doing their job and bringing on talent instead of getting rid of talent.
Yeah.
And then they wanted to give her help in the draft room. When if actually baseball people were saying, yeah, but she hasn't drafted anyone. She's only been here for 2 years.
Sure.
But we were
How can you blame Kim Eng for the farm system?
Yeah, we were blamed. We were too. We by me. I remember I couldn't stand Eng going into the year, and they're like, and our guy Geffner was like, it's not Eng. She just got there. Like,
yeah,
she hasn't done any of the drafting. You can't blame her for Blade. That's fucking Mike Hill or Beinfest before him. Like, so it was like, okay, so the only thing she's been allowed to do, she's done well. Maybe support her. Like,
well, most of their prospects never pan out anyway.
No,
Sixto was supposed to be great. Jazz Chisholm was supposed to be great. And I don't know. I mean, if you just looked at Jazz Chisholm statistically, you would look and say, what the fuck is this? I mean, you got an average ball player there at best, but with a little bit of flair, but nonetheless, an average ball player, if that. All right, we're going to come back with more. Sean Deveney going to join us. Lubie and Jim Sarney will be happy because we get to discuss a little NBA basketball. The Panthers are in action tonight against the Boston Bruins, so that should be a lot of fun. The Rangers got off to a good start. You know what? With Mayo's weight loss, I think that Ranger jersey won't stand out as much as it did when he put it on that time we went to Shenanigans.
No, it'll probably be big on it.
What was that, last year?
It was last year, and it was like skin tight.
Skin tight? He needed a shoehorn to get that thing stretched. And and then probably, unfortunately, indulged a little bit too much in the fine food that he has such access to. And but I think it probably... I asked him if he was wearing it. He said he wasn't. He said, this is a little bit frightening. He said he was shirtless yesterday when he was watching the game.
Yeah, he was doing yard work. Just all the words that were being...
Mayo does yard work? When does Mayo do yard work?
His daughter's graduating soon. They're going to have a graduation party at his house, of all places.
Oh, yeah?
And I guess the backyard was a disaster. So he and his daughter, and they were like cleaning all weekend. And I'm like, none of these things fit with Mike Mayo.
No, I mean, you would think Mayo's MO would be to do exactly what I would do and start looking up landscapers.
I was going to say, wouldn't you
see if you could trade out some ads on the lunchbox? That hasn't occurred to him yet? What's wrong with this kid?
I don't know.
Unbelievable. All right, Sean Deveney, and he's with Heavy.com.
Yes.
And has been writing about the NBA for a long time. In fact, is often sourced by other people.
Yes.
In terms of deals and things that are happening in the National Basketball Association. So we'll have that. Hockey last night, a good game. The Stars in Las Vegas. Unfortunately, I'm a big Vegas fan, naturally, because I love the fact that the franchise has been so successful. What an atmosphere they have there. This game was in Dallas. And 2-1. An odd goal early in the third period. What was the difference in that game? And the finish of that Ranger game was fantastic against Carolina, as it looked like the Carolina Hurricanes were going to have a 6-on-4 situation for the last minute and change.
Yep, and they fucked it up.
They immediately incur a tripping penalty off the faceoff, which is pretty hard to do. And so that became 6-on-5 or 5-on-4. I don't know exactly how they... It was
5-on-4 because it was two penalties. So
right,
it was 5-on-4.
5-on-4. So the advantage was sort of negated. And, it became a regular power play with, of course, the imminent danger of having an empty net.
Yep.
They did a great job of controlling the puck for the entire time that they had an empty net. Did have to swipe one away that looked like it was going in. The defenseman came back and had to wrestle the puck away. That was a good play. Nice hustle there. But the Rangers hang on. Yeah. Shesterkin, who has been dynamite all year long. Igor Shesterkin in the pipes, man. Well, what are we talking about here? I mean, holy Jacques Plante. This guy has been all right. He's like Ed Giacomin in there. Incredible. Gump Worsley.
Mike Richter.
Mike Richter was a good goalie. Yeah, good for you coming up with Ranger goalies from the past. All right, coming back with Sean Deveney in a moment. Now that. How come I always go to the Gump, man? I love the Gump, man. If you saw Gump Horsley, you would have never pegged him as an athlete if he was walking around the streets of New York. Little stumpy guy. It's 8:34. Champions, the outstanding simulcasting room at beautiful Hialeah Park. Yes, the grand old lady of thoroughbred racing has never been more vibrant, and you can wager on the races from the top tracks around the country while enjoying a cocktail at the Brass Rail Bar or any of the fine food served throughout the facility. If poker is your game, you're covered in style, and you can play all your favorite Vegas-style games, including blackjack, craps, and roulette, in Hialeah Park's sizzling hot casino. Get a player's card when you walk through the door for all kinds of generous amenities, including our favorite, free play, when you come out to the ultimate casino and entertainment destination, Hialeah Park.
These days, we're all looking for comfort anywhere we can find it. Thank goodness for Landlubbers Raw Bar and Grill in Plantation, because they are making sure you are as comfortable as possible. First of all, they're not only open for delivery and pickup. All you have to do is go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both pickup and free delivery. You're going to have the best wings in the world. You're going to have a great burger. You're going to have their amazing soups. Again, Landlubbers, Raw Bar, and Grill. It's nice and easy. Just go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both your pickup and free delivery. Thank goodness for Landlubbers for making you always feel right at home.
Are you looking to buy your first home? Have you been turned down for a loan? Do you need to refinance or get money out of your home? Call Michael Kodzie, CEO of Choice Mortgage. He's been helping the South Florida community get mortgages for 30 years.
Hi, this is Michael Kodzie, CEO of Choice Mortgage. We have the most competitive fixed rates in the market. Call me 24/7, 561-441-2730. And remember, I don't just work banking hours. Make the right choice for your home. Call Choice Mortgage today.
This comes from the great Defo Lama. It's the bets you don't make, the chances you don't take, that can compromise an otherwise incredible life, my friend.
The only way to get your morning started is with Defo, joined by Lubie, right here on The Defo Show.
Welcome back to the show. Jeff DeForest, Michael Lubie, Lubitz with you. Happy to have you with us here on the Defo Show. We welcome to the program one of our favorites when it comes to analyzing anything, including and especially the NBA, yes, which we do have the second round of the playoffs already underway with the Nuggets going down to the Minnesota Timberwolves. We welcome to the show from Heavy.com, and after being affiliated with many other top-notch organizations in the journalistic field, Sean Deveney joins us here on the program. Sean, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing well. How are you, Defo?
Doing all right. I mean, it's great. I love it when this happens where, we have somebody that's a frequent guest and you've always been generous with your time and kind enough to come on a show. Most people would text Lubie back and just say, lose my number when he requested an interview or a guest spot on a show. And then I see your name popping up as delivering the goods in any number of stories that have been broken about the NBA. So Congratulations on that. Nice to know that we have a guy who's a heavyweight in terms of the information game here with us on the program. I mean, Brian Windhorst had to be spitting up pea soup when I forget exactly what it was that you scooped everybody on, but I did read that. And when your name is mentioned in the New York Post and it's not in conjunction with a criminal trial, I consider that quite a distinction. I really do. So congratulations on all of that. All right, we were trying to figure this out, and you had the first game of the series between the Nuggets and the Timberwolves. So let's start there because the second round is underway. And this Anthony Edwards, I mean, everybody became aware this year that this guy was a sensational player. I mean, the same thing might also be true about Gilgeous Alexander if you weren't sure that he was going to be a star. But Edwards, is not afraid to say and suggest that he's the best player in the NBA. It looked like there was some validity to that. I don't know that he's the best player in the NBA, but certainly among the top guys. I mean, what an emergence by this player. And is it good enough, in your opinion, after watching what you saw in game one? Here we're going to have a pivotal game two for the Denver Nuggets, who are in jeopardy of losing the first two in their home wood. Always an awkward and ugly situation. But how much legitimacy do you attach to, A, to claim that Edwards is the best player in the NBA, and B, the Minnesota Timberwolves as a valid possibility to knock off the Denver Nuggets and win the championship?
Well, I think, as far as Anthony Edwards and his status within the league, he still has a ways to go, but he's certainly given himself a pretty good runway to get there, within the next year or two. you could certainly imagine him being certainly among the top 5 and probably top 3. And not long after that, the guy. He certainly in his first couple. I mean, he's only 23 years old. In his first couple of years, he's done pretty well to announce himself. And now that he's got the stage of the playoffs, I think that was one of the next steps that he needed to take. And they made such quick work in the first round that it was almost like he went too fast and nobody really even noticed that they've been playing playoff games in Minnesota. So for him to come out in Denver with the kind of performance that he had, that is certainly something that's going to continue to raise his profile. But it does give you some pause as far as, okay, what's the ceiling on this Minnesota team? And looking at the way they handle it, not just Anthony Edwards. Obviously, you need that guy who can carry you through. But defensively, what they're able to do with Jokic is such a problem for everybody. They start with Karl Anthony Towns on him, and Towns gets into foul trouble. They go to Naz Reid off the bench, who's the 6th man of the year, and really showed why. And he did a pretty good job on Jokic. And so if you've got those elements, then I think you've got to at least give Minnesota a chance in this thing, especially going in and taking home court advantage the way they did.
Well, and what's interesting, Sean, is Karl Anthony Towns. I don't know what word you use, spoiled brat. He's been paired with other talent, whether it was Andrew Wiggins, Jimmy Butler, and there was always some kind of issue between him and the talent. Maybe he's old enough now, maybe he's learned. And Edwards may just be that spectacular that it feels like it's the first pairing that he's like, okay, I'll let this guy be the number one. Whereas there was always infighting who was the guy. It seems like he's stepped aside to let him be the one and appreciated it enough to join him, because this is the best we've seen Karl Anthony Towns play on both ends of the floor in a long time. Like, he came into the league and was with a lot of pomp and circumstance, and then he sort of fell back, and it feels like he's found his place there. And the two of them together are pretty scary.
Yeah, I think it's kind of the opposite problem with Towns. He's come in and so much has been expected, and so many people in Minnesota wanted him to kind of take the reins and have that grit and toughness and be the leader of that team. And that's not his personality. He's a very laid back guy and kind of takes that onto the floor and into the practice court as well, to the point where, coaches and Jimmy Butler in particular did not like sort of that lax attitude towards things. They wanted to see him, really have a little more fire, a little more hunger. And so I think what's happened is Anthony Edwards has come in and said, you might be the star, but I don't care that you're the star. I'm going to take this team over. I'm going to give that grit, that toughness, that hunger. I've got that. Whereas Karl Anthony Towns never really did. So, I think that Towns is better suited to being a number 2. And the fact that he doesn't really have the pressure on him to be a number 1 anymore, I think that's been beneficial for him. And Anthony Edwards kind of takes that role that so many people wanted Karl Anthony Towns to take for so many years.
What kind of indicator do you think it was, Sean Deveney, the way that Denver performed in this first series against the Lakers, where they did knock them out in 5 games, but the Lakers were contentious in this series and had chances, and I don't know that it would have gone the other way. Had a few things gone right for the Lakers late in games, but they were in these ball games. And it seems, and there's an opinion out there being floated about, that Denver was just kind of doing enough. They were like Money Mayweather we were talking about earlier, or Canelo now, where they do just enough to win. And they are better than the other teams. But can you do that, sort of awakening theory in the NBA now, where you're sort of coasting and resting on your laurels a little bit? You're still winning at a high percentage, but you're not really putting everything into it. And then Lubie has the magic wand theory, where all of a sudden you just wave a magic wand over the team and they're all going to perform at the highest of levels. But are we seeing some kind of a drop-off with the Denver Nuggets, or are you still of the opinion, I don't know if you ever were, but we were, that Denver was probably going to win it all again?
Yeah, I think that going through the first round the way they did, getting a couple of Jamal Murray game winners, just keeping the Lakers at bay, That's an indication of a team that has won a championship and knows what it takes and knows not to put out too much too early. I think they weren't expecting what they got from Minnesota in game one.
Yep.
So they're going to need a big response in game two. They're going to need, much better shooting. They struggled to shoot the ball in that first round. I believe they shot 30% from the 3-point line, which is, well below their average. Jamal Murray did not shoot well. Pretty much Michael Porter Jr. was the only guy knocking down threes in that first round. And that kind of carried over. That's got to change. I mean, that's, in today's NBA, you just can't, you're not going to win that way no matter who you're playing. So, they've got to shoot the ball better. That's where it starts. But in general, I do think there's something to be said for a team that's sort of measuring itself throughout the playoffs and doesn't want to put too much forth too early. But I do think that game one was a bit of a wake-up call. We're going to need to see a much different Nuggets team, I think, in game two and then in game 3 and 4, where they're going to have to go to Minnesota and win one. So, I'm not that worried about the Nuggets. I think it's a good showing from the Timberwolves. Denver's still the better team here, and I think over 7 games that'll show. But yeah, this is something that's got to kick the Nuggets into gear. We've got to see more what they looked like last year than what they looked like in the first round.
I'm sure you're okay with this because you do a lot of guest spots and obviously a tremendous amount of work there with Heavy.com and other places where you can see Sean Deveney's efforts in covering the NBA. But is it possible to do a segment without mentioning LeBron James? and his status? I mean, all of a sudden, I'm not that he isn't always a source of some kind of speculation or controversy, but we see another coach getting fired, Darvin Ham. I don't know that he was second coming to Red Auerbach, but nonetheless, it seems a very common theme with LeBron James teams. And so what's going to happen there? LeBron James, you would have to think, comes back to the Lakers. They're talking about J.J. Redick and all kinds of other possibilities. Tyronn Lue maybe coming from the Clippers and taking over the Lakers, moving across town, a place where he's been before. What do you see there? I mean, what's on the horizon? Are there going to be dramatic changes besides the fact that they're obviously going to have a new coach?
Yeah, LeBron would like to see them get Ty Lue. That's what it comes down to. I think he was not happy back in 2019. They fire. So after his first year, they had Luke Walton when he got there. They fire Luke Walton. They're looking for a coach. They lowball Ty Lue. They offer him 3 years, $18 million. Now, Ty Lue had just come off a contract in Cleveland, which paid him 5 years and $35 million. And now you want to give him 2 fewer years and about half the money to coach the Lakers. And so he was sort of offended by that, and that's how he winds up with the Clippers. And I think, LeBron was never really happy with the way that played out. He wants Ty Lue to be his coach. And you've seen the Lakers go through Frank Vogel and Darvin Ham since then. So yeah, the Lakers would really like to make a push for Ty Lue. He's still under contract for the Clippers, and they can sign him to an extension. He's got pretty much everybody over a barrel. Not bad for a guy who just lost in the first round of the playoffs, of course. But yeah, I think there's going to be a bidding war a little bit for Ty Lue as far as what happens with him next. If the Lakers can't win that, then I think it is a pretty good drop-off. I'd be surprised if they go with J.J. Redick. I think LeBron would like J.J. Redick, so we'll see if he gets his way there. I just think with the situation they're in, they need a little bit more of a tested coach, whether it's Mike Budenholzer or somebody like that. But yeah, J.J. Redick is a real possibility. I think Tyronn Lue is their first choice, though.
Sean, I want to move out east. I've questioned the Celtics roster in the sense that can they hold up against the Nuggets to me or a Thunder? But to me, out east, it especially once you had all the injuries hit, it felt like the Celtics were just going to have a cakewalk through the East. Is that still the case? Do you see? I mean, look, Donovan Mitchell's been tremendous his entire career in the playoffs, but he's never gotten help, whether it was Utah and now the Cavs, and that continues to be the case. Mobley, look, they got through against the Magic, but it took overcoming an 18-point deficit, and Mobley having 16 rebounds, not doing much offensively. Garland, again, was almost a no-show until like the fourth quarter. You look at the rest of the Eastern Conference, the Knicks are gutty, and people love Jalen Brunson. He's a small guy that gets the job done, and he's scoring at a really great pace. But again, the Knicks have had their injury issues. And again, their number 2 is very questionable, let alone a number 3. When you look at the Eastern Conference, is there anyone you see putting up any kind of an effort against the Celtics, roughing them up at all?
They've got Kristaps Porzingis out, so that'll ding them a little bit. But you're right, with the injuries that we've seen across the East, they can afford to lose Porzingis for a few weeks here, which looks like he'll be back at some point from that calf injury in the playoffs, assuming they get to the Eastern Conference Final. Cleveland is not a very scary team. They looked really bad on the road in all 3 of their games in Orlando. If you go into Boston and try to bring that, then it's going to be a quick series, no question. So it's hard to see anybody really putting up much of a fight against the Celtics with the injuries that we've seen. It's certainly not Cleveland. The Knicks will be much more interesting. I think that is, like you say, a bit of a grittier team. They play much more physical. They've got more bodies to throw at you. I would expect the conference finals to be a tougher go for the Celtics, but I don't expect much from Cleveland. The Cavs do have Max Strus though, and Max Strus always,
yesterday he actually had a couple nice threes.
Yeah, and he's a bit of a Celtic killer. So I can imagine Max going off for 32 points in one of these games and winning one. But I can't imagine much more than that.
All right. Also in the East, of course, they're giddy in New York. They're thinking that they have a legitimate shot. Lubie gives and dismisses the chances of the Indiana Pacers, who somehow, lost 2 games to the Milwaukee Bucks in that series, although they finished in dominating fashion. And during the regular season, they were showing signs of maybe being the team on the come as they were scoring 150 points a game there, it seemed like, during the stretch. What possibilities do you give the Pacers of making a series of it against the New York Knicks? And are the Knicks capable of maybe making it all the way to the NBA Finals?
Yeah, look, the Pacers can certainly put up a fight because of their style of play. If they're going to get out and run and get the Knicks into a track meet, and you get Tyrese Halliburton, who really did struggle down the stretch of the season and in that first round. If they get him going, then that's going to be tough, for the Knicks. Who could have drafted Tyrese Halliburton, by the way, and have never lived that decision down. But I think if Indiana can force its pace on the Knicks, then they can make this an interesting series, a long series. I don't think they've got the horses to finish the job. But I think it's all going to be about pace, about how fast Indiana is able to play. When they do that, really they're tough to beat for anybody. But that's not how the Knicks want to play. They really want to grind you down and get into that half court. And when the Knicks do that, they'll be able to take control of the series. But I do think, like I said, I give Indiana a chance to at least win a couple games here. The Knicks, I don't see them having much of a chance. Look, even if Porzingis doesn't come back, just the matchups aren't there for the Knicks. How do they handle? You've got OG Anunoby, but he can only guard one guy, and if you take away Jason Tatum, then you still get Jaylen Brown and Derek White. We saw the way that the Heat defended Jason Tatum, where sometimes they were throwing 3 guys at him. He just picked them apart, and Derek White gets 38 points. So it's hard to see the Knicks having anybody who can keep up with that Celtics duo.
Will Adam Silver be somehow in an adjoining courtroom to Donald Trump in New York if the same officials are allowed to work this series as work the 76ers Knicks series?
It's a good question because, man, those last 2-minute reports,
I love those, by the way. Yeah, we totally fucked up. And I'm sorry.
Right, yeah. Forget the first 46 minutes where you might have gotten a bunch of calls against you. There was this call that went against you, and that's why you lost. Sorry, but
yeah, it's crazy.
But yeah, the refs, of course, the league, they're always going to be a story. But the less they can be a story, the better. But yeah, I do think that the refs, certainly in that first round, I do think the league's going to be dotting its I's and crossing its T's because it doesn't want to see some of the major late game mistakes that they saw that really did affect the series in that first round. They don't want to see that again.
I think even Spike Lee was screaming during that one scrum. What was that, like game 4? No, game 2.
Game 2.
Yeah. Screaming. Yeah, come on, Riff. What are you kidding me? I mean,
what are you talking about?
He's always screaming.
yeah, and he was getting all the calls at that point, but it was just so absurd. All right, we didn't touch on the other series in the West. The Oklahoma City Thunder, one of those teams. You look at the box score, you see Gilgeous-Alexander looks great. You see that Holmgren is having a really good season. You see highlights, of course, but you rarely see. I've rarely seen Oklahoma City play a full game. Did they ever get on TV? I'm not sure, but
yeah, I expect that to change. Next year for sure. With them having that. The weird thing about Oklahoma City is that if you really think about it and you step back, what Philadelphia was trying to do with the process, losing on purpose and gathering up all these picks and using cap space as an advantage, that got interrupted because they were so blatant about it. And they had Jerry Colangelo come in. Remember, the league got involved and said, you can't do this anymore. Well, Oklahoma City very quietly just continued to do that. And
Yes.
this is the process in action. This is what the Sixers were trying to do. The Thunder weren't so brash about it, and so nobody noticed that they were doing it. But this is the result, and they've got a fantastic team. They're a favorite. As weird as it sounds, they're the favorite over Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, and the Dallas Mavericks, and they probably should be. That really tells you how far they've come. And you mentioned some of the stars. I think Lou Dort is going to be watch Lou Dort and how he handles. He's one of the best defensive players in the league on the perimeter. Watch how he handles Luka Doncic. I think that's going to be the real matchup that's going to say a lot in terms of how this series goes.
I was surprised that Lubie didn't bring this up. But the Miami Heat, what do they do in the offseason? Is there any chance Sean Deveney, Kevin Durant, will be in a Heat uniform?
Where do they go?
Yeah, they've got to do some things before they can get there. Because of the way that the rules are now. They've got to make sure they have the space to pull off a trade like that. So, there's got to be a trade or two that is a precursor to something like that. So pay attention to what they do in terms of that. I mean, if you go back to 2010 when Pat Riley pulled off the big three moves, there were a bunch of trades before that. People forget that they made a bunch of trades before that to kind of lay the groundwork for something like that to happen. So I'm curious to see what kind of groundwork gets laid, when we get around the draft in terms of trades to where the Heat can put themselves in position financially, because there are so many difficult rules now about what you can do in terms of making these trades. So, I think Kevin Durant's at least a possibility. The Suns are saying they're not going to trade him. We'll see. Paul George is somebody who could be available. Again, the Clippers are saying they want to keep him. We'll see. Brandon Ingram, gets hurt a lot, but when he plays, the kind of versatile, dynamic scorer, I think that the Heat really could use. So we'll see about him. But there'll be some big names on the trade market, and I'd be surprised if the Heat didn't get themselves involved in as many of them as possible.
Off that, before we go, I know you got to get going, Sean. The scuttlebutt came out because Jimmy Butler, whether he's playing or not playing, likes to talk. That he wants the 2-year extension at the max. The Heat are always worried about paying guys late in their career. They did it with Wade. The Sixers supposedly came out that they're monitoring a guy you just said, Ingram and Butler. I mean, I find it hard to believe Butler's going to go back there. They picked Ben Simmons, who's been a disaster, over him, but we'll see. I find it hard to believe that the Heat have put all this into Jimmy Butler. They've let him get away with stuff they never even let LeBron get away with. And then now they're going to just let him go with 1 year left on his contract. And he is the kind of guy that I feel like he would not just go quietly if they just tell him to go screw himself. Where do you see that going this offseason? Because he made it known before, like as soon as the season ended. So the offseason really hasn't even begun. We're still in the playoffs. And he made that clear that he wants that and he wants it now. Where do you see that going? Do you see the Heat just acquiescing and doing that? Do you see that? Like, what do you see with that?
Yeah, I do see the Heat eventually giving him an extension. he hasn't been healthy, and so that's the big concern. But when he's healthy, he's still Jimmy Butler, and I think that when you've got a player like that, you kind of, the way the league is now, you can't really afford to let somebody walk away because then you lose that chunk of salary, and it's hard to get that back. And so, I don't foresee them trading Jimmy Butler. I think they want to reconfigure the roster a little bit around him, but certainly more so around Bam Adebayo, and get a younger star in there that they can kind of pair with Adebayo. But yeah, I don't foresee them giving up on Jimmy just yet. I think they want to try to at least put together, bring in another big time player, and then reconfigure things around Jimmy Butler for one more run.
Seems pretty obvious after some of the rhetoric that was going back and forth that Butler's headed for the Knicks. Play for Tom Thibodeau. That seems obvious after the conversation that was going around.
Yeah.
Sean, always a pleasure, my friend. Heavy.com is where you find Sean Deveney. He does a dynamite job, and we always thank you for taking time to be with us here on the show. Thanks so much, my friend.
All right. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks,
all right, Sean Deveney, ladies and gentlemen.
He's great. He's actually an insider that doesn't brag about it, but you'll see all the time, like articles reference Sean Deveney reports. I'm like, oh, good for him.
I did. I saw a lot of references to Sean Deveney being the source of this information that all of a sudden was making a big splash and a lot of headlines around the NBA, and turned out to be true, which is unusual. I guess Stephen A. Smith is always going to grab attention because ESPN has a tremendous publicity machine also. And if you're saying things that are outrageous, and if you're talking about LeBron James, you're going to get the so-called clickbait that you're looking for. But
yes.
I mean, it's at the point now where it's sort of ludicrous to be arguing about who's the greatest of all time in any sport for that matter. But I mean, Stephen A. Smith condemning LeBron James as a loser by comparison to Michael Jordan, I thought, I mean, while there was some validity to some of the things that he was saying, I don't know that that's the ultimate measuring stick of how good of a basketball player the guy is. Because my contention has always been the minute you put LeBron James, even now on a team, they become a contender.
I mean, they pushed the Nugget. Look, it was 5, but Andy liked to say it was a very different 5 than the Heat's 5. Like,
yes.
Every game was close, and they literally had a chance to win the other 2, if not for Jamal Murray game-winning shots. So that right there gives them a lead in the series if they win those 2 games. So,
sure.
And I get it. If my aunt was my whatever, she'd be my. I understand that.
Your aunt was your uncle, you'd be,
My aunt had a whatever, she'd be my uncle. Okay, I get that. But what I'm saying is, and a lot of it's his own doing. I'm not even having that argument anymore. I don't care. Jordan's the best ever in your mind. That's fine. But he's this age, and he still's arguably not only a top 10, he's arguably a top 5 player in the league. Yeah. And they went toe to toe with the Nuggets, even though their roster is not what it should be. And he played well in that entire series. Every game he played really
The Lakers have like 4 guys that can play basketball.
That's it.
And that was it. Now, 2 of them happen to be one, even in decline, is still playing a brand of basketball that you would be thrilled if your star player in his prime was playing at the same level as LeBron James is now.
Oh, yeah. The stats he was putting up were ridiculous.
And Anthony Davis is a great player. I don't think there's any denying that. I mean, the guy's terrific. He's got 6 guys draped all over him. He still manages to score and be effective. Once in a while, he'll do like a bizarre disappearing act, but not frequently enough to make you doubt that he's somebody that can help you go ahead and at least be a factor in winning the championship. Yeah, I mean, they were in those games against a very good, team, the Nuggets, that people expect to rebound from a 1-0 deficit against Minnesota as if it was nothing.
Yeah.
So kind of interesting. But, I mean, the debates, look, it seems to cast a shadow over what this guy's doing.
That's the thing.
Which is phenomenal. I mean, please, if you're 39 years old and you're out there at the park and you're playing like you did when you were 20, don't you feel pretty good about yourself? Of course you do. I mean, especially after, this was a guy who was rarely injured in his NBA career. He only started missing chunks of games during the season in the last few seasons. So for most of his career, I mean, which spans 21 years, is it 21 now?
Yes.
Or 20. This is his
20th. I think this was his 20th year.
This was his 20th year. Imagine it. Carmelo, gone. Dwayne,
they're all gone. Wade's already in the Hall of Fame. Wade's been gone so long, he's already in the Hall of Fame. Remember, there's a 5-year moratorium.
Gone. Even Darko's out of the league. Get out of here.
Yeah, they all are.
And this guy's still playing like he just came into the league. So I don't know how you could really question whether or not this guy was a great basketball player. Does he deserve to be considered the greatest of all time? Yes. Is he? Who knows? But I mean, quoting different statistics, I'm more impressed that even though he's had everything his own way, as Smith contends that he's named his coaches, he's made the deals as if he was general manager, he's requested players he wants to play with, but still, I mean, he's managed to win titles in 3 different cities.
Yes, that's impressive.
Yeah. It's not easy to go to another team and all of a sudden make them a championship contender, but we see a little of this with Kawhi Leonard, but not as much since he's been compromised badly the last several years with the Clippers. So he did win that title, and hey, look at the margins. I mean, it's the thinnest of margin. Was that not among the luckiest bounces you've ever seen in sports? When that Kawhi Leonard shot went in from the corner that took Toronto to the championship.
Yeah. Over the Sixers and Jimmy Butler, 100%.
Unbelievable. Yeah,
I wasn't even in the conference finals. I was in like the second round. Yeah, like, look, and I'm not Mr. LeBron defender. It just sucks when you do the debate. You said it, like, you don't appreciate the player. You start tearing them down.
Yes.
Admit Jordan's the best ever. Move on from that. That's fine. And just appreciate LeBron. Like, the dude's played 20. You understand this? He didn't even do the miss. He played 71 games this year. He played more games than
and a lot of minutes too. I mean, even though they kind of lessened his minutes a little bit, but not by much.
Played over 30. I think he played 35 or more minutes a game, and played 71 games at 39.
Incredible.
And he was amongst the league leaders in every major category. Like,
people are saying he has no moves, that he is a crybaby, and that he doesn't deserve this kind of consideration. That he was like 4 and whatever, losing record in championship rounds. He went to 8 straight NBA finals. This guy, whatever team he was on. What the fuck?
I don't know. It's funny that he gets.
It's insane to argue this. It really is.
Discredited for being so good that he gets there but loses. So it would be better if he lost in like the second round, which is the dumbest fucking thing.
Absolutely ridiculous. Yeah, I mean the things that and in many cases you can just look back and see individual games where he was the lone reason that his team stayed alive.
Yes, that's
including that game in Boston with the Miami Heat, where they were finished, absolutely finished, had no chance in that series, and all of a sudden LeBron goes off, and next thing you know, they win the title. Yes. All right, we got to run. Thanks so much for being with us. This Believe podcast, is that video going to be with the lovely Hannah Brown?
It is not video. It would be audio only for Hannah Brown.
That's a big disappointment.
I know.
Quite an attractive young lady. One of the more impressive reality show stars, if you will, has been this Hannah Brown. I mean, she was the Bachelor. She was on The Bachelor and made it near the end with that guy, that crazy ex-football player, Colton Underwood, who turned out to be gay. And he was on The Bachelor, as The Bachelor. Remember that?
There you go. No, I didn't know that. That's fun.
Colton Underwood, yeah.
I don't know.
So then she picks a guy who was a real asshole when she was the Bachelorette, some guy named Jed Wyatt, who turned out he was cheating on the whole premise there, that he was there for love and all the right reasons.
There you go.
And then she goes on Dancing with the Stars and like blows them away with her talent. And that's not, I mean, as much as it seems like a hokey, puff show or whatever, powder puff show.
The dancing drill.
That's not easy, right? I mean, forget about it. To go on there as a novice, it wasn't like she was some skater or something. It's not like, they got Peggy Fleming to go out there. Is Peggy still alive, Peggy Fleming? Dead or alive, Peggy Fleming?
I think alive. Is she that old?
I'm going to say alive, yeah, Peggy Fleming. You don't see much of her, man. She was very elegant when she was skating back then. All right, we have to run. Thanks so much for being with us. But that's coming up on the Believe podcast.
Yes.
That we'll be popping that up there about 10 minutes
from now. 11 o'clock. Yeah, it'll be in around 11 o'clock. We'll talk with Hannah Brown, and Peggy Fleming is alive. She's 75 years old.
Beautiful. Well, I'm sure she's every bit as lovely as she was when Dick Button was going ape when she had a triple sow cow. Can you believe this? I love that guy. All right. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Thanks so much for tuning in on Mike Mayo's Lunchbox. Now, I guess I'm not going to be on the road today for this Boynton Beach appearance. You say there were chefs and all kinds of major D's going to be on the show. What's the name of the restaurant?
I'm
looking it up. Yeah. Hey, Mike, where are we going?
Driftwood. It's a place he's been wanting to get to for a while. He's really close with the head chef, I guess, / restaurant.
Oh, nice.
Driftwood will be there.
Driftwood. Okay.
Today.
All right, so that'll be fun, and then you'll be there at 1:00 with Mike Mayo for Mike Mayo's Lunchbox. All right, we'll see you later on. We'll see you tomorrow. Thanks so much for tuning in, everybody. Catch you next time as we leave you on that.
The time.
It's 9:08.
Let's go to eat a damn snack.